For today's video, I am going to be responding to Abby's challenge of talking about some of our favorite videos from past VEDS. Fun fact, before I officially dive into it, my very first VEDS was back in 2013. It's weird to think about because I am the only current VEDSy that did VEDS back in 2013. Now, I'm not going to talk about a video from that VEDS because that VEDS honestly does feel separate from what this VEDS has become. But I wanted to mention it because I just think it's really weird to think about me doing VEDS back in 2013, and also just how fascinating it was that I was doing a full storyline during VEDS. Yeah, for those who may not know, I used to do storylines on my channel. I would like to do them again at some point. Don't know when that's going to be. But yeah, that was a thing that I did fairly often on my channel back in the day. And it's wild to think about trying to do a full storyline while also doing VEDS. It would not have happened this year, I can assure you. The obvious choice when talking about favorite videos of mine are the covers that I have done. Now, I haven't necessarily done a lot of them during VEDS, but I did do You're Welcome back in 2017, and of course last year we had 5,000 Candles in the Wind, and this year we had Another Terrible Day. And while I am very proud of how those videos turned out, they are a little too obvious. So I am going to talk about other videos other than those. And I'm going to follow Alicia's lead and talk about a video from each VEDS that I participated in. So first we have my very first VEDS back after, the one I did in 2013, and that is 2017. And I'm actually going to pick two from this year, just because in both cases they're videos that I didn't have to film anything for. It was purely editing, and they were both in a response to basically the same challenge from two different people. Namely, it was the trailer challenges that was issued by both Matthew and Jesse. I am honestly very pleased with how these two videos turned out. I put a lot of time and effort into them, and they're things that I do still enjoy watching. I watched them again recently, and I think I did a pretty good job with them. The video from 2018 that I'm going to talk about is my film noir video from near the end of that particular VEDS. I absolutely love this video. It was such a blast to film and edit. I also think I did a fairly good job of talking about, honestly, what was ultimately a ridiculous topic, namely that singing guy was lamenting over the fact that he has to talk about a sad song for the last video of VEDS, and doing it in just as serious a manner as possible. I've talked in the past about how Starkid is very good at this, and I think I did a very good job with it as well. I've always been a really big fan of film noir, and I like to think that I did a pretty good job of, making this homage toward it. 2019 video that I'm going to talk about is the one where I talked about Godspell. Godspell has been an important part of my life ever since I was in a production of it back in 2006, and ever since I saw a less than stellar performance of it, and also, started making videos, I realized that I wanted to talk about it, but I was never really sure how. Thankfully, I believe it was Caleb that issued the challenge that allowed me to talk about it in the form of what not to do when you're putting on a production of Godspell. I always really enjoy watching other people talk about things they're very clearly passionate about, and while I do find it a little more difficult to do it for myself, I do still really like this video. I am very passionate about Godspell and doing it justice, and I think that very clearly comes through in this video. So I'm glad that I was ultimately able to talk about it. 2020 is a fun year to talk about because I was not doing well. So truthfully, I'm not as enthused about those videos as I have been with some of mine in the past, but the one that I am going to talk about with this one is my relatable characters video. In this video, I talked about 5 fictional characters that I very strongly related to. I feel like I don't necessarily open up and talk about myself that often on this channel. I went into a little bit about how difficult it was to work during the pandemic and how terrible my job was, but for the most part, most of my videos consists of series that I do. And while this video obviously isn't deep in any way, I do think it's a nice peek into how I view myself. It's apparently easier for me to talk about myself in relation to fictional characters. Or maybe I talk about myself more often than I think that I do, and it's kind of like a Sophia from Unsleeping City kind of thing, where she constantly talks about how she knows she's a closed book, but everyone always knows exactly what she's feeling. That's also possible, but regardless, I do really enjoy this video. For 2021, I'm going to talk about my songs and media video. I remember when I first posted this, I wasn't sure how well it was going to do, just because I felt like it was just a really random and kind of out of nowhere video. But it was received really well, and I'm really glad about that because I am still very proud of this video. Put a lot of work into it, and it was a lot of fun, and I just think it's a really interesting topic. I'm glad that when this idea about songs that are attributed to certain things, even if they weren't made for those things, just popped into my head, that I decided to commit to it and make this video. As for this year, well, VEDS isn't over yet, so I'm gonna hold off on that at the moment. So that's it for this video. I do want to thank Abby for issuing this challenge because it is always interesting to look back at your past stuff, and I know that most of us here at VEDS don't have a tendency to do that. So thank you for giving us that opportunity, and to you, and also to the rest of my friends and fellow VEDSies, I will see all of you tomorrow.